Summer, beach, luxury hotel, an attractive woman, Monika, her laid-back husband Petr, and precocious 8-year-old daughter Klarka were enjoying a dream family vacation in Hurghada, Egypt that soon turned into a nightmare. By day 4 of their holiday, 2 of them were dead under suspicious circumstances. Is the only survivor a rightly convicted killer or an innocent victim of trial by tabloid media and the bloodthirsty justice machine? Hey guys! Welcome to my channel, Mystery Inquest. My name is Veronica and I make mystery and true crime videos. If that is something that you are into, hit the subscribe button and tickle the notification bell. You know the drill. Today's case, guys, makes me shake my head in disbelief. It makes me sad and confused. Like when I was researching this, it's quite unbelievable. So fasten your seatbelts, grab your cushion or a doggy. I have a doggy right here. His name is Sven, if you don't know it. And let's start at the beginning. The family Kramny comes from Karviná, Czech Republic. Peter Kramny, at the time 35 years old, is a laid-back and quiet guy. He worked so hard to support his family, working 6 days a week. He worked in a Hyundai car factory. Is it Hyundai or Hyundai? You guys, I'm so sorry. He is an ordinary man who has friends, family, a stable job, and he was happy to spoil his beautiful wife, Monika, and cute daughter Klarka. 36-year-old Monika was described by her friends and family as an extroverted, kind, and fun-loving woman who loves her family and friends. And although she likes to be in charge, Monika has a good heart and means well. Monika loves to dress well and she likes to have nice things and luxury holidays. At the time, Monika was a nurse and worked in a retirement home. According to some friends, this job was very demanding and she sometimes felt down and depressed. You see, she was dreaming of life as a model and she enjoyed the attention she was getting on social media. Peter, okay you guys, let me explain something. His name is Petr, but I keep saying Peter. I'm so sorry. I might just say Petr or Peter. I just keep getting it wrong, so I apologize. So, Petr and Monika married in 2007 when their daughter Klarka was 2 years old. Klarka, who was 8 years old at the time, was the cutest little girl who loved her parents and made friends easily. Klarka, like her mommy Monika, liked to be the center of attention. She had a lot of energy and she was very creative. She had a great relationship with her grandpa, who picked her up from school, and both parents doted on her. And Klarka was overjoyed when her grandpa gave her the best present ever, a little Chihuahua puppy that she called Lily. The family loved to leave their landlocked country every summer for a beach vacation. They went to exotic locations such as Tunisia and Egypt many times before, and this year wasn't an exception. And so, on July 25, 2013, the family departed from the Czech Republic to Egypt. They stayed in the luxury Titanic Palace Hotel in Hurghada. Hurghada is a modern city located on the Red Sea coast. It is a favorite tourist destination to enjoy the beauty of the Red Sea and its breathtaking beaches and crystalline waters. Holiday makers can enjoy wonderful amenities in the numerous luxury hotels, as well as water sports such as diving, snorkeling, and kite surfing. Guys, have you ever heard of kite surfing? It looks like a lot of fun, but I think I would be a little scared to do this. Comment below if you've ever kite surfed and if you would do it. Okay, moving on. When you tire of all the entertainment and all the aqua parks, you can venture out on a desert safari and enjoy an oasis dinner. Petr, Monika, and Klarka had so much fun at the Titanic Palace Resort the first few days of their vacation. Every morning, Monika would get up early and she would take their towels to the beach to claim the best spot there. They enjoyed great food and had fun at the water park and at the beach, and they knew from experience to be very careful about food and drink. You see, it is very common for tourists to get something called Egyptian tummy bug, also called Pharaoh's revenge. The symptoms include upset stomach, vomiting, and diarrhea. This could be caused by drinking tap water or drinking very cold drinks with ice or taking cold showers when you have just been in the hot sun. For some people not used to the Egyptian heat, the temperature change shocks the body and it can cause an upset stomach. The Egyptian tummy is usually treated by Antinal or Antinol. It is a medicine available in every pharmacy in Egypt without prescription. Antinol is an antibiotic and it usually vanquishes the Pharaoh's revenge in no time. The Kramny family experienced this before, and a friend gave them his unused bucket of Antinol just in case they needed it. And as it happens, on July 29th, the whole family woke up not feeling very well. The following chain of events is described by Petr. On July 28th, 2013, sometime before 6 p.m., the whole family changed from their swimsuits and got ready for dinner. They took a series of photographs on the way to the dining room. Peter said he was not hungry yet because he had a burger and fries earlier and he felt uncomfortably full. Monika had a salad and a bread roll, and Klarka ate her usual spaghetti with a red sauce. Peter and Klarka drank Fanta, and Monika had a glass of wine. After dinner, the family took a stroll around nearby shops. Monika wanted to buy a silver ring, but they couldn't find one, so they just walked around. And after that, they enjoyed an evening program at the hotel. There was a kids' dance party that Klarka enjoyed very much. She met another little girl her age there, and they had a lot of fun together. This was followed by a performance, after which Peter, Monika, and Klarka went back to their room. Peter remembers that they all got ready for bed and had a drink of Coke. Klarka drank Sprite, but we don't know if Monika had a drink. Apart from that, everyone was just fine when they went to bed. On Monday, July 29th, they all woke up with an upset stomach and the Egyptian tummy symptoms. An endless merry-go-round of vomiting and diarrhea started. And because there was only one bathroom, Monika also used a little bucket. It was that insert from a little trash can, and she used it to puke into. Peter reminded Monika to take the Antinol medicine. Monika took it, but Peter doesn't know if Klarka took it. Peter also took the Antinol about 30 minutes after Monika. Klarka was very quiet that day, almost unusually quiet. She slept a lot. At first, she slept on the bed with Monika, and when Monika went to the bathroom, Klarka moved over to the bed that Peter was on. Monika usually took Klarka to the bathroom when she was sick. At one point, Klarka was sick all over the bed that was further from the balcony. Monika took the soiled sheets and a blanket and threw it on the floor next to the bed. Peter put some towels over the bed and laid on that. None of them just wanted to deal with it. They were so weak and unwell. At one point, Peter complained of whole body aches, and he also reported he had pins and needles in his arms all the way from his elbows down to his fingertips. And he took a pain-relieving tablet, Ibalgin, more commonly known as ibuprofen, that he had from home. Monika reported that she had the shivers and she turned the AC right off, but Peter felt too hot and he was sweating. After a while, Peter couldn't stand it no longer and he turned the AC back on and told Monika to cover more. And then they ran out of the toilet paper, and so they rinsed in the shower instead a couple of times. Peter reported that his diarrhea was not so bad, and that's how the whole day went. They slept when they could. They asked each other if they felt better, but they didn't, even though they took the medicine earlier. They also talked among themselves about what could have caused their problems, but they all ate different things, so they had no idea. The family ran out of water at around 1 p.m. Peter asked Monika to go get some more, but she said she was too ill to go anywhere and told him to drink the Coke or Sprite they still had left. But by then, Peter couldn't drink anything else except water. So Peter got up, took the 3 empty water bottles and went to get more water. Luckily, the housekeeper was cleaning next door. Peter, because he couldn't speak English, he just showed him the 3 empty water bottles, and the man gave him 3 brand new half-a-liter bottles and a liter of Coke. He also showed him to throw the empty water bottles in a trash bag he had attached to the cart. Peter then made moving motion around his stomach to to indicate that they were all sick and pointed to the toilet paper. The porter gave him 2 rolls of toilet paper, and the whole thing lasted between 5 to 7 minutes before Peter returned back to their room. He told Monika he brought more water and went back to bed. By the time evening rolled out, Peter noticed that the girls didn't go to the bathroom that much, so he assumed they felt better and that they had no longer had diarrhea. Monika put a wastebasket between the beds, and when she or Klarka needed to vomit, they used that. By this time, Monika slept on the bed nearer the balcony and Klarka slept on the other bed. Peter took turns, and sometimes he slept on the bed with Monika and sometimes with Klarka, depending on where there was more space. Sometimes in the evening, Peter noticed that Monika was using the room telephone. When he asked her who she was calling, she said that she was trying to reach the reception, but she couldn't get through. They agreed that if they are not better by the morning, they would go to see a doctor. Peter said that he had no idea that anything was seriously wrong with them. They all just assumed that they had the Egyptian tummy, and because no one was complaining of extreme pain and they had the antenatal medicine, they thought they were fine. By 9 or 10 p.m., they ran out of water again, and so Peter asked Monika to go get more, but Monika said she wasn't going because she still wasn't feeling good. And so once again, Peter begrudgingly got up, took the 3 empty water bottles and went to a bar that was right next door. Peter was a little annoyed because he thought he felt the worst because the girls were just sleeping and he was still being sick, and he thought that Monika could have gone to get the water this time. Nevertheless, he got 3 new water bottles, and by the time he got back to the room, he drank half of one. He was that thirsty and his throat was very, very dry. On his return, he put that bottle in the bathroom, the second bottle he put in the little fridge, and the third bottle he put on the night table between the 2 beds. He told the girls to drink it. Monika mumbled something while he went to the bathroom to be sick again. After that, he slept on the same bed as Klarka. At one point, she kicked him when she rolled over. She slept facing the wall and Monika slept facing the balcony, and so she was back to them. Sometime during the night, Klarka spoke from her sleep, something like, quote, "Grandpa, would you get me an ice cream or fruko?" You guys, if you don't know what fruko is, I think it's like a little juice drink. Oh, get away, fly. Klarka also asked Peter to give her a drink, but he told her to just reach for it as it was right next to her. He doesn't know if she drank or not. Sometimes Peter felt so bad that he couldn't even lay down, so he was just sitting on Klarka's bed and dozed off that way. Monika noticed him and asked him to go lay down, but Peter replied that he felt better sitting. He doesn't remember if they spoke or moved after that, although the water bottle that he brought earlier that he stood on the night table, that was almost empty. When Peter woke up next, he was extremely thirsty, and he said he never felt this sick in his entire life. Both waters from the bathroom and from the fridge were finished by then, and he noticed that there was a little bit left in the bottle that Monika and Klarka drank from. He took that bottle, went into the bathroom and took a sip. He immediately noticed that it was mixed with Coke. It tasted so bad, but he was so thirsty that he drank it anyway, only to throw it up minutes later. After that, he went back on the same bed that Klarka was on. He put the pillow against the headrest so he could lean on it and be in a half laying, half sitting position, hoping it would give him some relief. And as he was getting comfortable, he put one of his legs over Klarka and he told her to move over a little, but she didn't move. When Peter touched her, to his horror, she was cold. He immediately jumped up and turned the light on. Klarka was laying on her left side with one hand under her head. The other arm was folded across her body. Peter immediately noticed that Klarka looked unnaturally purple. According to Peter, he turned her on her back and started to resuscitate her. At the same time, he was yelling at Monika to help him, but she didn't move. He kind of smacked her on the back just to get her attention, but she still didn't move. So he jumped over to Monika and he turned her on her back. Her eyes and her mouth were wide open and she was also purple all over. Monika wasn't breathing either. Desperate Peter started resuscitating Monika to no avail. He then ran out of the room and banged on the nearest door to him. A Polish tourist was afraid to open the door at first, but Peter kept yelling, "Help, help!" And when she opened the door, he just grabbed her by the arm and he led her to his room. When the lady saw the scene in the room, she immediately ran out of the room to get help. Peter sat on the bed in shock with a million thoughts running through his head. He didn't know what to do. He called his mother and told her that Monika and Klarka are not responding and he doesn't know what to do. Peter's mom told him to alert somebody for help and not to forget to call a travel insurance company, that they will know what to do, which he did. Here is a snippet of the recording so you can judge for yourself what kind of state Peter was in.
Dobrý den, poličované asistenční služba pojišťovny Allianz, jak vám mohu pomoci?
Dobrý den, Kramna. Stala se mi taková věc, jsem v Egyptu na dovolené a před chvíličkou jsem stanul a cítil jsem, že manželka s dcerou jsou mrtví, že umřeli ve spánku. Co mám dělat dál? Mám u vás pojištění.
It was later stated at the court that he seemed calm, cold, and calculated during the phone call. I don't know about you guys, but I can hear the emotion and panic in his voice. To me, he seems in shock. Everyone is different, you guys, and we have to consider that Peter was described as laid back and calm and collected person, so it was in his nature. It was also later said in court it was suspicious that he had all the paperwork ready, including the insurance claim number, but in the actual phone call, the operator asked for the number and she told him where exactly to locate the number in the paperwork. That wasn't true, you guys. After that, some hotel employees arrived and led him out of the room. He fell to the ground. They helped him up and brought him into the Polish lady's room. Peter was yelling that he needed them to call his travel agency rep and that he needed a drink because he was so thirsty. The Polish lady gave Peter some water, after which he ran into the bathroom to be sick again. The agency rep arrived, and when she found out what happened, she urged the hotel employees to get Peter medical help. They grabbed him under each arm and they led him to the hospital room that was located at the hotel. The doctor there pumped his stomach. Peter said that a black or brown liquid came out of him. The medical staff were catching it in a small bowl and a medical bag after they ran out of space. After that, they fed some kind of solution through the tube and they pressed on his stomach whilst he was laying down and everything came up again. When the procedure was done, they gave him some IV fluids and some tablets that Peter thought were for diarrhea. He complained about a strange iron taste in his mouth. Finally, after all this was done, Peter felt so much better physically, but he was in shock and grief-stricken after losing his wife and daughter and not understanding why or how this happened. Soon after, the travel rep came with some hotel management personnel and they asked a lot of questions like what did the family eat and drink, and Peter told them they only consumed food and drink from the hotel. This happened several times when more and more people were coming in and questioning Peter. Apparently, he was discharged the next day but admitted soon again for a nervous breakdown. In the meantime, a hotel doctor, Muhammad Muhammad, arrived in the hotel room around 3:30 a.m. He confirmed that Monika and Klarka were deceased at 3:45 on July 30th. They had been deceased for about 3 hours. In his report, he stated that there were no signs of violent struggle and there was no injuries present. He couldn't determine the cause of death. The bodies were transported for autopsy conducted by Dr. Walid Muhammad Naji, a director of the Institute of Forensic Medicine for the Red Sea region. Neither Klarka nor Monika had any injuries on their bodies, except for a small bruise each on their legs. Not identical, guys. And it had nothing to do with the cause of death. Toxicology came back negative to any known drugs or poisons, including the samples from the water bottles and Peter's pumped stomach. The only unusual thing in both females was a dark spot in their stomachs. The stomach's consistency was jelly-like and they were also severely dehydrated. The cause of death was recorded as gastritis and dehydration due to vomiting and diarrhea. A second cause of death was poisoning by an unknown toxin. The toxin could have left the body before death, even a few days before death. There were also thousands of possible poisons and it is impossible to test for all of them. Someone would have to come up with a specific tip and then test for that specific poison. And because one of the possible causes of death was poison, the police started an investigation. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, the doctors checked other hotel guests for similar symptoms, but everyone else was fine. The persons preparing food were also interviewed. The Egyptian authorities confiscated Peter's passport and didn't allow him to leave until the investigation was complete. He was not a suspect, just a person of interest. The bodies of Monika and Klarka were transported back to the Czech Republic, and a second autopsy was conducted on August 9th. The bodies were missing some organs, including the stomachs. The Czech experts stated that according to their findings, the females didn't suffer from diarrhea, and this was the suspicion that sparked the investigation into whether Peter poisoned his wife and daughter. However, toxicology came back negative. The preliminary cause of death was a death by unknown agent. Meanwhile, Peter had to stay in Egypt for many months, all by himself in a foreign country, grieving and full of worry with uncertainty of what would happen next. Monika and Klarka's funeral took place on August 14, 2013, and Peter watched on his tablet from Egypt. I imagine that the weirdness of his situation made him vulnerable to be preyed upon by the tabloids. In the first days after the tragedy, Peter gave quite a few interviews to the Czech tabloid media, for example like this one.
To je s tou smrtí něco společného. Vůbec. Nemám s tím vůbec nic společného. Já jsem tady přišel o rodinu, mě se v jedné chvíli prostě zhroutil svět. Já si to nedokážu vysvětlit, jakým způsobem se to mohlo stát. Já mám svědomí čisté, já jsem pro svoji rodinu žil, já bych měl všechno. Opravdu s tím nemám nic společného, oni mě tady prostě zadržujou bez jakoukoliv důvodu, že jsem údajně podezřelý, ale já jsem to opravdu neudělal. Opravdu všichni, co mě znají, tak všichni vám potvrdí, že já prostě bych toho schopen nebyl prostě.
This resulted in a lot of speculation and negative portrayal of Peter. There were many fantastic and salacious headlines regarding Peter as well as Monika, their marriage, Monika's affairs, and Peter's jealousy as a possible motive for doing away with his family. The public started to turn against him, commenting on his perceived lack of emotion, his appearance, and by the way he acted. Can you imagine that at the worst time of your life, you find out from the tabloids that your beloved wife that you are grieving was cheating on you? Because that's what happened to Peter. And it got even worse, because now many people started to speculate that he killed his family. Peter Kramny was tried by the media and branded a murderer before he even set foot back to his homeland. Finally, the Egyptian Ministry of Justice completed their investigation and allowed Peter to leave the country. He returned to the Czech Republic 3 months later on October 31st, 2013. The Interpol representative stated that based on the autopsy result, there was no suspicion that a crime was committed. The Egyptian police had completed their investigation and closed the case. And that should be the end of it, right? Wrong. Because the Czech police had also been conducting a secret investigation, including bugging Peter's phone calls this whole time. Since no poison or other evidence was ever found, and Peter never said anything incriminating either, they extended the surveillance further, but it still yielded no incriminating evidence. Peter stated that the worst thing after he returned was seeing Monika and Klarka's things in their flat and going to their graves for the first time. There was also some family drama going on with his sister and Monika's family. Eventually, Peter returned to his regular life and resumed his job. The tabloids were still hounding him, and his newly found infamy also brought a legion of female admirers, with some of whom he sought solace with and became intimate. The tabloids were lurking behind every bush trying to photograph Peter with a new woman. The public and even some of his family members were disgusted by his behavior. In my opinion, Peter is selfish and weak, but that doesn't make him a murderer. He cooperated with the police in Egypt and the Czech Republic. He voluntarily gave up his electronics and passwords and made statements. It seems to me, and this is just my opinion, that the police were 100% sure that Peter did it. They just didn't know how he did it. And so they kept secretly investigating Peter, hoping to find something. He was never going to have a fair trial in the Czech Republic. 6 months later, in February 2014, Peter Kramny was charged with murder. The cause of death was shockingly, no pun intended, by electrocution. This cause of death didn't come up during the second autopsy. The first mention of electrocution was in a final autopsy report from January 2014. This result was apparently reached by the exclusion method as the only possibility of cause of death that was left. The electrocution was determined because there was a mark on Monika's neck, which he stated was a burn. The pathologist also determined that the heart had signs of electric shock injury. This hypothesis was confirmed by a third supposedly independent forensic expert, Dr. Vorel from the Institute of Forensic Medicine of the České Budějovice Hospital. The investigators sent the Czech Autopsy to the Egyptian pathologist for a review. He stood by his original assessment and stated that the mark on Monika's neck was not there when he conducted the autopsy. It must have occurred during transport. Additionally, the heart's condition could be due to many different common processes. That's why electrocution wasn't the cause of death in his opinion. Now, I won't bore you with the many details from the courtroom and the war of the numerous forensic experts. This case goes very deep, you guys, and it involves power, prestige, possible corruption, possible money laundering, fake evidence, literally, conflict of interest, allegedly biased judge, and some allegedly dodgy forensic experts and forensic institutes. The whole affair makes me feel is truly upsetting to me. In my opinion, a totally unprofessional and unfair trial. I'm not even saying that Petr is 100% innocent because we don't know that. I'm just looking at the evidence presented at the trial from the trial transcripts, and I don't understand how he was convicted. There is no direct evidence and there is so much doubt. He was basically convicted based on two pieces of indirect evidence, of which one was fake. Number one, a transcript of a bugged phone call with his aunt where he supposedly said, quote, "I am glad how it all turned out in Egypt." End quote. This is a blatant lie because he never actually said it. The court never heard the recording. They were just going by the transcripts, and one of the policemen just transcribed it wrong. And the second piece of indirect evidence is the conclusion of a third forensic expert that confirmed the prosecution's expert hypothesis that Peter killed his wife and daughter by an electrocution. I don't even know why something that occurred abroad was investigated by the Czech authorities. Do you guys know how this works in other countries? I can imagine the difficulties with the different country systems, the language barrier. It is like having too many cooks in the kitchen, if you know what I mean. Anyway, there was a secret trip to Egypt by a group of Czech investigators and the forensic pathologist in March 2014, but it isn't known what they achieved there, as there is no paper trail and it wasn't mentioned at the trial. The whole thing was uncovered by the Solomon Group while fighting for Kramny's justice. Two things are known for sure about this trip. The investigators couldn't get into the Kramny's room, but they did, however, obtain previously unseen photographs taken before the first autopsy, and it clearly shows no mark on Monika's neck. Regarding the trial, let me just give you one small example of what went on. The prosecution were allowed to obtain samples of tissues for forensic analysis of Monika and Klarka's heart and skin. But guess what? When the defense asked to have their own samples tested, the forensic pathologist, Igor Dvořáček, refused, stating that there is not much left and they cannot afford to waste it, and so the judge refused it. They were only allowed to view the samples at the institute for a short period of time. It was later discovered that the two pictures supposedly showing Monika's heart and Klarka's heart, respectively, were in fact an identical picture of Klarka's heart. Just turn around. They claimed the structure of the heart was changed due to being electrocuted, but apparently this is a completely normal structure in a young child. Are you fuming yet? No? Okay, how about this? Just breathe. Are you ready? The forensic pathologist Igor Dvořáček had the autopsy samples destroyed on March 22, 2018, despite numerous requests by Kramny's defense, MPs Černochová and the Solomon Group to keep the samples safe for further testing by experts in the upcoming appeal. The pathologist explained to the judge, when questioned about it, that it was a routine procedure to destroy anything older than 5 years. So he was legally allowed to do it. Legally, yes. But what about morally, ethically? The prosecution didn't even state how exactly Monika and Klarka were supposedly electrocuted. They proposed it was either done while they were in the shower and an electric appliance, such as hair straighteners, was touching them, or by an exposed wire elsewhere. This hypothesis, although possible, was not tested, however, and doesn't seem probable. The hotel personnel and maintenance guy was questioned by the Czech police, and he testified that no changes or manipulation with anything electrical in the room occurred. The investigators, prosecutor, and defense were gathering evidence, collecting statements, and preparing their case for more than a year while Petr Kramny was in custody. Then, almost 2 years after the tragedy, in July 2015, the trial began. The Czech judiciary system has no jury. The judge or panel of judges decide the fate of the defendant. And so, on January 7, 2016, Petr Kramny was found guilty of double murder and he was sentenced to 28 years behind bars. A few appeals were denied, but Petr's defense kept working. On July 30th, 2018, Petr Kramny's defense attorney submitted an appeal for a retrial to Judge Renata Gilova. They had new expert opinions drawn by 5 court experts which question Professor Worrell's conclusions in his expert opinion review. The former Minister of Justice, Helena Válková, together with MPs Černochová and Korte, also called for the retrial. Further adding to the absurdity of the case, Judge Gilova decided that the conclusions of the 5 forensic experts will be assessed by František Worrell himself. An expert whose opinion has been challenged must decide if the experts questioning his work are right or wrong. Yes, you heard it right. It's just never ending. Kramny's attorney Jana Rejšková in the end withdrew the request for retrial because at the time the same judge and the same court would decide appeals and there was a new law being discussed in the parliament. Finally, from 2022, the law states that the same court panel that issued the conviction will no longer be allowed to decide appeals and retrials. This process makes it much more fair for defendants. And after many years that Petr already spent behind bars, his attorney finally submitted a new appeal for retrial on July 13, 2022. I am hoping that Petr will get his retrial. But what do you think, guys? Is Petr innocent or is he guilty? What really happened to Monika and Klarka? Was it dehydration or poisoning? Were they really killed by electricity? And if they did, then by whom? By Petr? And why? What is the motive? Personally, I think it was dehydration or an unknown poison. It seems the most logical to me. Petr went to get water 2 times. It's far too little water to drink when you have problems like this. Also, there have been many cases of sudden and unexplained tourist deaths abroad in countries like Egypt, Tunisia, or Dominican Republic. When I first heard about this case, that's what immediately crossed my mind, that it is one of those mysteries. They should look into those for sure. Some theories for causes of death include poisonous fish, tainted alcohol, or bedbug pesticides. I would really like to know what's causing these sudden deaths. It is a little scary to go on holidays. Also, some people speculate that Monika did it, that she tried to poison them all because she was depressed and wanted to leave this world in her favorite place full of happiness and luxury. Monika, being a nurse, might have had access and knowledge of medicines. I don't believe this theory, guys. I just don't feel it really. However, I do have some questions about Petr. He testified that he was vomiting all day long into the night, but when they pumped his stomach out, there was a whole bowl and a bag of stuff that came out of him. At first I thought it was just a solution they put into him, but it says in the transcript that the solution was administered after. And also, why does his sister and some members of Monika's family believe he's guilty? To be fair, the sister and Petr never really had a good relationship, so I wouldn't put much weight to it. I just thought I would mention it. My third suspicion lies with the Polish lady next door. This lady seemed convinced that he did it. because she testified that she didn't see him being sick and that he seemed to be acting. That is another little red flag to me, but still, he cannot be convicted on this. That's not evidence. Another thing about Peter that struck me odd was that he didn't look after Klarka at all the last day and night. He didn't know if she took medicine or what she drank. It breaks my heart that she asked him for a drink and he didn't give it to her. He just told her to reach for it. But then again, some men are like that. They just leave all the hands-on childcare to their wife. Again, this doesn't make him guilty. And the last thing that is a little suspicious to me is when Peter was asked in that interview if he had anything to do with it. Peter just went on and on and on. But then I think again how absolutely shocking it would be to be in his shoes in foreign country without being able to speak the language. He was just probably grateful to hear his mother's tongue and being able to communicate. It kind of broke my heart when in another interview he said that when the journalist left after spending 12 days with him, he was crushed. Okay guys, please comment down below what you think about this case. If you were getting frustrated and mad just like I did when I was researching it. So please comment below and comment your theories below, of course. And also, how did I do in my second video, you guys? If you think that I did good, smash that like button or comment down below how I can improve if you think I didn't do that good. Don't forget to subscribe and turn the notifications on. And I love you guys. Bye. Stay safe. Oh, comment down below what other videos you want me to make.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.